So what separates the good D&D games from the great? It's a question that can haunt dungeon masters and tabletop gaming philosophers alike. It's what we as DMs truly strive for in our world building, storytelling, and presentation. Today, we're going to talk about the 4 components of rest: respect, empathy, satisfaction, and trust. Hi everyone, my name is John from DM Shower Thoughts, where we find our best selves through gaming. When I started to really invest in tabletop gaming as a major part of my life, one of the things I started paying attention to was which sessions felt like good sessions, which sessions fell flat, and which were truly great sessions. The sessions that were great, and we've all been a part of them, are the ones that almost feel like magic, and that you're part of something that you can't be a part of in any other medium. Now, contrary to what we might all think, it's really the little things that make the difference between good sessions and great sessions. After a lot of deeper conversations with my podcast partner in crime, Adamus, together we came up with an abbreviation that really sums up the 4 main components of a great role-playing session. And then I went ahead and changed one on him, and then changed up the abbreviation real quick too, so he might even be a little bit surprised by this video. One thing that you'll notice is that these 4 human truths have nothing to do with what rules you play by, what your style is, or what kind of game experience you're going for. Instead, these 4 truths are things that not only make us better gamers, but they make us better people. And after all, that's what this channel is all about. And that's why I've chosen to organize the abbreviation the way I did, as REST: respect, empathy, satisfaction, and trust. Not only does the order make it easy to remember, but those 4 qualities actually will follow each other. So to start, number 1 is respect. All great human interactions are predicated on respect, which is giving due regard to other people's feelings, thoughts, traditions, and rights. If you were to take anything away from this video, it's to maintain respect at the table at all times. Being kind, giving an appropriate amount of space to other players, while also celebrating their victories and their imagination is what makes this hobby beautiful. And the opposite can also be true. An off tone or a fit of impatience can really degrade the experience for everybody. And it doesn't take a lot. It's little things, little snaps that can really harm the dynamic of a table. And actions always speak louder than words. By keeping a respectful tone at the table, you will slowly but surely earn the other player's respect over time, if not their trust. And you'll notice that trust is number 4. That's really what we're building to. Now, one thing to acknowledge is that we're all human, and we all make human mistakes. Sometimes we talk without thinking, sometimes, we make a social error, and how we choose to react and own up to our mistakes speaks volumes about who we are as people. Now, this is a perfect example, and I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable for a moment. A few weeks ago on our podcast, I had meant to shout out a fellow YouTuber that really has done a tremendous job in helping me through my early hurdles on this platform. I meant to really give him a shout out and give him his due diligence, but instead, listening back to the recording, it came off as just a 5-minute ramble on something that I disagreed with him on. And really what I had meant to do was set up a contrast to 2 legitimate viewpoints to the same issue, and after listening back, I realized I had done a very poor job of doing that. I had set up a straw man argument, and I had failed to give the due respect to his perspective first, before laying what my side-by-side perspective was, and then crediting both sides for their approach. One thing to note about our podcasting production process: I just really go into whatever studio we're in. I just kind of ramble a lot, and then Adamus does all the editing, so I hadn't even listened back on the podcast before it got released. I was so excited when I heard his name that I got to the timestamp, and I immediately sent him an email with the link to be like, hey man, you should check this out. And then as I kept listening, I realized what happened, and immediately after, I felt terrible about it. I felt terrible because basically this individual who had been so gracious about helping me get on my feet, I had torn down without giving his argument its due regard. I was dreading the reply email for the next few hours. And imagine my pleasant surprise when what I was faced with wasn't backlash or combativeness, but the second trait that we're going for, which is empathy. I had failed in my respect, but he replied with kindness. He didn't brush it under the rug, he did identify what I did, and he was extremely forgiving. It's definitely been one of the most humbling experiences I've had recently. Now, empathy is our shared understanding of each other's feelings. Our shared excitement and imagination is what energizes this hobby and why so many creative people are drawn to it. Now, once we establish proper boundaries and comforts through respect, now we can move on to empathy, where we get to share each other's conflicts, each other's situations, and each other's victories. If respect gives us the defining parameters of who we are as individuals in this game of cooperation, empathy is the glue that binds the party together. Now, I've played in games where everyone at the table is extremely respectful, but nobody is really empathetic to each other's characters. I've also played in games where there are highly empathetic characters, but they end up oversharing and nobody is able to put up enough boundaries, and the experience can be overwhelming. Now, I've also played in games that have a unique alchemy of both, and that's when we hit satisfaction. Satisfaction is the appropriate proportions of respect and empathy given at a table. It's when everyone is able to walk away feeling better about the experience than when they arrived. Satisfying play also doesn't necessarily happen each time. It can feel like catching lightning in a bottle. You can have the same characters in the same setting and the same players, and session by session have certain sessions that are satisfying and some that kind of fall flat. And that's okay. It's all a practice of repetition and communication and adapting to each other's styles. I've had the privilege to be a part of many satisfying games because the dungeon masters and the players worked together to find the right balance of respect and empathy at the table. And now the last, most elusive truth is trust. The only surefire way, I guess, to really develop trust is enough proven repetitions of respect, empathy, and satisfaction. Trust is also hard to describe because there's not really a formulaic way to get there. I've been at tables with players where after months, even years, I've demonstrated that I'm supportive of their character's story and their playstyle, and they still really don't trust me as a player. I've also played at tables where there are new players I've never even met, and they intrinsically trust me. And there have been players that have never played the game with me, but they know me from something else, and I've really invested in my relationship with them, which is why there's a mutual trust. Now, trust is like a bank account. You can invest in it, you can deposit, or you could withdraw. And any time there's a slippage of respect, empathy, or satisfaction, that trust bank account starts to be withdrawn from little by little. And like I said, little changes make a big difference. Snapping at a player because you're frustrated, even if to you it was a little thing, can completely warp the dynamic you have with that player. Now, the opposite can also be true. If you're a player and you're supporting the rules calls your DM is making, even if you don't agree with them, then that's investing in the trust between that DM and that player. Because after all, we're all investing in each other to have the best game that we can. And really, those are the 4 qualities I found that no matter what game we're playing, no matter what rule set, system, style, those 4 things are what make a great D&D game. Respect, empathy, satisfaction, trust. And once you have all 4, you can rest easy and just relax and play some freaking D&D. If this episode was a little abstract for your taste, I totally understand. Now, I want to know your experiences. To you, do you agree with what I said? Or do you have other qualities that to you make a great Dungeons & Dragons experience? And just to remember, hit that subscribe button, ring that little notification bell, and game responsibly. Bye-bye now.